Welcome back now for the news in detail. We start from Afghanistan, where 63 people have been killed in a blast at a wedding in the west of Kabul. The Afghan Interior Ministry said 182 others were wounded in the suicide bombing. The ministry said children and women were also among the dead. Eyewitnesses said the hall was packed with guests when the explosion occurred. The Taliban have condemned the attack, which has been claimed by ISIS. Meanwhile, police said 12 civilians have been killed in a roadside bomb blast in the northern province of Balkh. Meanwhile, the Afghan Taliban have said peace talks with the US will continue despite the killing of their chief's brother in a bomb attack. This comes after the younger brother of Taliban leader Haibatullah Akhundzada died in a recent bombing. The Taliban said they are close to reaching their goal and such attempts cannot stop them from achieving it. Earlier, the White House said talks with the Taliban are moving in the right direction. US President Donald Trump said both parties are looking for a deal to end the decades-long war in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, Indian occupation forces have wounded dozens of Kashmiri protesters with pellet guns in Srinagar as a crushing curfew entered its 14th day. Protesters were carrying flags and chanting slogans against New Delhi's illegal annexation of the valley. Indian troops fired tear gas and pellet guns to disperse protesters in Rainawari, Noweta and Gojwara areas of the city. Srinagar's hospital officials said more than 24 people have been hospitalized with pellet gun injuries. Indian occupation forces have further tightened the curfew after the clashes. Meanwhile, over 4,000 people have been arrested and some of them transferred to India. Meanwhile, India's lockdown of occupied Kashmir has continued for nearly 2 weeks. Communications, including telephone and internet, are completely cut off, isolating people from the outside world. The valley is swarming with Indian security forces who have turned Jammu and Kashmir into the world's largest prison. More in this report.
New Delhi revoked Jammu and Kashmir's status as a disputed territory on August the 5th. Since then, the area has been under total lockdown. Unable to leave their homes, buying essentials like food, fuel and medicine has become almost impossible for Kashmiris. Traders are also having a hard time making ends meet.
India has imposed the removal of Article 370 on us. It's like they have slapped us in our faces. But we will not sit idle. We will starve to death, but we will not compromise on our rights and our dignity. We will take our honor back.
The government in New Delhi says the curfew is necessary to prevent disorder after their move to make Kashmir part of the Indian state. But this argument only confirms that local citizens don't wish to be the part of the Indian state.
Police is outside. What can we do? We don't get anything and we are afraid. We can't go out and play. We can't go to school. We cannot do anything. We are only staying inside our home, and by staying inside the house, we will go mad.
Responding to international criticism of its illegal move, India says Kashmir is its internal matter, but a UN Security Council meeting on the issue on August the 16th shows this is not the case.
Meanwhile, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says India has been captured by a fascist and racist leadership. Khan said Prime Minister Narendra Modi's doctrine of hate and genocide will spread unless the international community acts to curb it. Khan said 4 million Muslims are facing detention and cancellation of citizenship due to Modi's extremist ideology. The Premier added that the safety of India's nuclear arsenal is at risk under the rule of Modi's government, and world powers must take this issue seriously. Moving on, Israeli forces have killed 3 Palestinians near the Gaza border. Palestine's health ministry said another civilian was critically wounded when Israeli troops opened fire at a group of civilians. This comes a day after occupation forces wounded 67 Palestinians during weekly protests along the Gaza border. Israeli warplanes also struck 3 underground bases in Hamas in the north and center of the Gaza Strip. Officials say over 300 Palestinians have been killed since the start of weekly protests last year. Now, the death toll from a dengue outbreak in Bangladesh has risen to 98 since the start of this year. Bangladesh's health department said over 1,400 people have been diagnosed in the latest outbreak. The health department said over 50,000 people have been hospitalized with dengue since January. It said nearly 300 people a day were admitted in hospitals in the last 90 days. Meanwhile, 50,000 people were left homeless after a massive fire swept through a slum in the capital city of Dhaka. The government says over 15,000 homes were destroyed in the Chalantika slum. The fire department said many homes had plastic roofs, which caused the flames to spread. It said several people were injured. Firefighters took more than 6 hours to put out the flames. An investigation is underway. A car bomb attack has killed a Kurdish police officer in northeast Syria. A spokesman for the Kurdish police said the bomb was detonated by a remote control near a school as the police patrol drove by in the city of Kamishli. ISIS has claimed responsibility for the attack. Kurdish forces control most of Kamishli, while government troops are deployed in the city's Arab quarters and around the airport. Moving on to Spain, where a huge wildfire on the island of Gran Canaria has triggered mass evacuations. The forest fire has broken out just days after another blaze raged in the area. The fire in Vilaseca forced evacuations in Tejeda, a scenic town with a population of nearly 2,000. The island council said 7 helicopters are working to extinguish the blaze. 70 soldiers of the Spanish Army Emergency Military Unit have also been moved to help contain the fire. Strong winds in the area have fanned the flames, making extinguishing them difficult for firefighters. Rapturous crowds have filled the streets of Khartoum as Sudan's generals and protest leaders signed a historic deal. Tens of thousands of people cheered to the prospect of civilian rule and eventual elections. The deal was inked during a ceremony attended by Sudan's neighboring leaders and other international dignitaries. The new Prime Minister will be named on August 20th. The signing brings into effect a constitutional declaration agreed on August 4th. The transition deal was reached after months of public protests calling for a civilian rule. Moving on, the United Nations says airstrikes by Eastern forces have caused extensive damage to a civilian airport in western Libya. The United Nations Libya mission says attacks on civilian infrastructure are a grave violation of international human rights law. The mission says it did not find any military infrastructure or assets at the Zuvara airport. The LNA says its raids targeted shelters used by Turkish drones. Now, British media says Prime Minister Boris Johnson is set to meet key European leaders amid uncertainty over Brexit. Prime Minister Johnson will try to convince French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel to restart Brexit talks. In his first trip abroad as Prime Minister, Johnson's meetings are scheduled ahead of a G7 summit in France. He plans to tell French and German leaders the British Parliament cannot stop Brexit. Johnson is also expected to urge them to restart EU negotiations to avoid a no-deal Brexit on October 31st. After over 3 years of Brexit dominating EU affairs, the bloc has reiterated its refusal to reopen the withdrawal agreement. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of anti-government protesters are marching from Victoria Park in Hong Kong. The fresh protests are held a day after thousands of people showed their support for China. Protesters say they have been saving their energy for today's rally and will show the movement still has broad support. Demonstrations have lost intensity since the situation worsened during the protesters' occupation of the city's airport. Over 2 months of demonstrations in Hong Kong have plunged the Asian financial hub into its worst crisis. The protests in Hong Kong began in June over a controversial extradition bill. Minor migrants on Spanish A-board charity ship for over 2 weeks have been transferred to the Italian island of Lampedusa. Charity organization Open Arms says 27 minors have been authorized to leave the ship. The development comes after Interior Minister Matteo Salvini allowed only minors to leave the ship. The remaining 107 migrants are still on board. The Spanish charity had rescued the migrants off Libya. Salvini initially ordered officials not to let the migrants disembark. He later made a partial concession at the insistence of Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte. Thousands of policymakers from 180 countries have gathered in Geneva to discuss plans to protect endangered species. Specialists will evaluate changes to regulations and species protection listings under the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. The treaty regulates trade in over 35,000 species of plants and animals. Site Secretary General Ivan Higuero says the conference will focus on extending protection to more species threatened by human activity. It will also devise mechanisms to help crack down on illegal trade and impose sanctions on countries that break the rules.
Very concerned at the prospect of further sales of stockpiled ivory. We saw the last sale back in 2008, and the following decade we've lost 100,000 savanna elephants, 60% of the forest elephants in Africa following that stockpile sale. And this has primarily been because these legal markets have opened up avenues for criminals to traffic illegal ivory into those markets and sell it.
Well, the CITES meeting in Geneva comes amid warnings about a rapid decline in animal and plant species. A recent UN report said that 1 million species are on the brink of extinction. Now, moving on, a group of Bulgarian adventurers have set sail in a reed ship to test a theory that ancient Egyptian traders were able to cross the high seas. More in this report.
Ancient Greek historian Herodotus wrote that ancient Egyptian traders sailed as far as the Black Sea. Now Bulgarian adventurers will put his writings to the test. They will travel in a ship built with reeds from the Bulgarian port of Varna around the eastern Mediterranean to the island of Crete.
For the departure we are only 11, and we will sail from here via Burgas possibly to Istanbul. And then we will pass the Marmara Sea, Troy, Limnos. What is my scientific goal? And then we have to see. Many people speak about Egypt, Cyprus, Crete. Yes, maybe we will go there.
The adventurer's boat has been built with 2 tons of Toyota reed, 2 kilometers of rope, and is equipped with 2 sails. It is 62 meters long and 40 meters wide. The expedition's leader, Dominique Goelitz, is renowned.
We want to demonstrate that this sailing technique is capable to cross the Black Sea, the Marmara Sea and the Aegean Sea.
The expedition's leader, Dominique Goelitz, is renowned for his sense of history and adventure. In 2007, he set out from New York. In 2007, he set out from New York for southern Spain to prove Stone Age man made similar transatlantic journeys.
German and Swiss scientists have found abundant levels of microplastic pollution in Arctic snow. The scientists have warned of significant contamination of the atmosphere and demanded urgent research.
The widespread contamination of Arctic snow is an alarming situation. A team from the Alfred Wegener Institute analyzed snow samples in Germany. The scientists confirmed snow in all places contains high concentrations of plastic fragments. The worst contamination was found in samples from a rural area in Germany's southern province of Bavaria, totaling 154,000 particles per liter.
Scale, basically, where we used to just see plankton and zooplankton, now we're seeing quite a bit of plastic, both in the seawater, but now in the sea ice itself. And that's one thing that's interesting about sea ice. It's kind of a concentrator of everything that's in the water.
Researchers found particles of nitrile rubber, acrylates and paints containing plastics in the samples. The experts confirmed pollen from near the equator ends up in the Arctic.
We have been able to sample ice cores from multi-year ice and from first-year ice here in the Canadian Arctic archipelago, and I think this is the first time that we can show people the presence of microplastic in this area.
The United Nations estimates 100 million tons of plastic have been dumped in the oceans to date.
Hundreds of thousands of people have descended on Max Yasgur's alfalfa fields in New York to mark the 50th anniversary of the Woodstock Festival. Amid anti-Vietnam War protests, race riots and assassinations of figures like Martin Luther King, Woodstock's message of peace and love served as an antidote to the anger of young Americans.
I love it. I'm so happy to be here.
The Woodstock Festival is venerated as a beacon of hope that shone brightly in the tumultuous 60s. Its 50th anniversary kicked off with a performance by singer Arlo Guthrie, the son of folk revolutionary Woody Guthrie. He was one of the musicians who performed in that iconic 1969 weekend.
And I don't want to die. The fact that we're still here. Still singing, still playing, still going to shows and enjoying ourselves. Kept the spirit alive for a long time. And so here we are just trying to celebrate that. And thank you for showing up and being here.
The Woodstock Festival showcased a rock genre rooted in American folk. Aging hippies donning tie-dye kaftans, flower crowns, and fringed suede vests hark back to the golden age of peace, love, and music. People returned to the venue 50 years later to remember their youth and how their lives changed forever.
69, it's changed a tremendous amount. The weather is much better, but it's a good feeling to come back. I was 19 when I came out here, and it was quite an experience.
The historical Woodstock site is now operated by a non-profit group which holds regular concerts and runs a museum to honor the Woodstock legend.
In Prague, a French artist has opened a circus festival by walking a 350-meter-long tightrope at a height of 35 meters. This feat was accomplished without the help of a security belt. Here's more.
French artist Tatiana Mosio Bonganga walked the tightrope above the Vltava River to roaring applause from the crowd. The feat was one of the performances at the official opening of the Prague Circus Festival. Bonganga set a new personal record with her walk, even though she didn't use a security belt. The new circus style incorporates traditional elements, but with an added twist.
Tatiana started the festival by crossing the Vltava River on a tightrope, and this is kind of a motto for this festival. Otherwise, all the performances here have their own poetry and will be finding their own way to the circus.
The festival features world-class contemporary circus acts, from puppet shows and cabaret to breathtaking acrobatic performances.
The topic of this performance is about the old rituals and understanding the basic circle of fire and other elements. We are trying using spinning and juggling techniques to tell the story of one shaman soul leading the way to Astra.
The crowd was also delighted by other performances from dance troupes and fire jugglers. The Prague Circus Festival will continue till the 1st of September.
There is a new player in the world of wearable tech metamaterial. The new high-tech fabric was created by a team at the National University of Singapore. They say their invention can save battery life on wearers' devices by helping establish stronger wireless connections. More in this report.
This is not your typical t-shirt. It's made of a new textile called metamaterial that helps boost connections between wearable technology. It stops Bluetooth and Wi-Fi signals from radiating in all directions and help them glide across the material.
This t-shirt has certain patterns on it that we are calling metamaterial textiles. What they do is they guide wireless signals that are emitted very close to my body by regular devices that we have around us, like smartphones or smartwatches.
Apart from saving battery life and improving connectivity, metamaterial also has cybersecurity applications. By restricting signals to the immediate area around itself, the smart textile can save sensitive data from hacking attempts. It can also be used to measure medical patients or athletes' vital signs.
We hope that this will make the ability to kind of wear electronics on our body and kind of sense these signals more convenient and more imperceptible. So we can merge these electronic devices closer and closer to our bodies without having them get in our way.
Metamaterial can be washed, dried and ironed like other fabrics. It's also cheap, costing only a few dollars per meter. The team at NUS has obtained a patent on the textile's design, meaning metamaterial t-shirts could soon hit a clothing store near you.
Now in the business stories, Namibia has handed over the Southern African Development Community chairperson role to Tanzania at the body's 39th summit. The 16-member inter-government organization aims at promoting sustainable industrial development in the region. Outgoing chairperson and Namibian President Hage Geingob has passed the baton to John Pombe, President of Tanzania. Delivering his last speech as the chairperson, Namibia's President Hage Geingob highlighted the challenges faced by the region. Geingob stressed the need to increase intra-trade and create jobs to support the development agenda.
As a region, SADC has to assume a pivotal role in ensuring that there is an effective system of facilitating and monitoring intra-regional trade and cross-border business transactions with a view to enhancing intra-regional trade.
Sri Lanka win the first test at Gale by 6 wickets against New Zealand, chasing a target of 268. Skipper Timothy Karunaratne led by example, hitting 122, while Lahiru Thirimani made 64 runs. Kiwi bowlers Trent Boult, Tim Southee, William Somerville and Ajaz Patel took 1 wicket each in the 4th innings. Earlier, New Zealand struggled in their second innings on day 4, losing wickets at regular intervals. And now let's have a look at the weather updates. Well, viewers, with the weather update, we come to the end of this bulletin. For more news and updates, stay tuned with Indus News.